Growing up, there was this story of a nun who would stalk the halls of this family site to ensure every kid was asleep. But if it found a kid awake, they would take out their kid's eyes to ensure that they slept. Now, this story comes from a little happy place called Llangrannog. So when I was 10 years old, my school took me to what is commonly known as Llangrannog. And yes, if you don't know, that is how it's pronounced. But to be more specific, it is the earth centre within the town of Llangrannog that I would go to. We would go there for a week and have some fun, race go-karts, ride horses, go down a dry slide, and then we'd go to our shared rooms with 4 bunk beds and repeat the day again. But carved into one of the bunk beds were the words, "Beware of the Black Nun." The kids in my room didn't take much warning, as I feel the mystery and horror wore off for us. Doesn't mean it wore off for everyone, especially those who were feeling homesick. No one saw a black nun on that trip, but it did make me wonder, where did the story come from? Did Llangrannog or the Earth Centre itself have some horrible past? Or was it all made up by kids trying to scare each other? Well, kind of yes and no. First of all, I wanted to find the full story of the Black Nun, as honestly I couldn't remember this. It was over a decade ago for myself, but I kept getting different stories. Here are a couple I had found from the Reddit thread.
What a blast from the past. I remember when I went. When the lights went out, you were not to leave your bed, otherwise she'd come for you through the window. Her name was scribbled underneath where you used to put your bags in the rooms and under most bunk beds. We went in like 2008 or 2009, and we were told not to keep curtains open or she'd tap her fingernails on the window. We also got told never to go into the bathrooms without knocking or she would appear behind you in the mirror. And of course the standard nail marks on the bunk bed, all done by previous visitors. And if you touched them, she'd watch you in your sleep and take your eyes if you woke up. Llangrannog for me was in 1997. The story back then was she walks the halls searching for any kind of bed after lights out. Kids go into the bathroom in teams like Ghostbusters. First time I went, the story was she would sneak into your room at night, hover above you while you slept, and if you woke up, she would tie your tongue in a knot so you couldn't scream. Then came the stories about her stealing your eyes, biting off toes, and haunting the halls for lone students.
But this did make me realize something. The years that everyone was saying they had heard these stories, except for these 2 posts saying that they were in 85, there was no story. And in 89, 90, still nothing. But in 92, the first story arrived.
My story is from 1992. The Black Nun witnessed a murder by her mafia boyfriend, so had to go into hiding in an inner city church, where she taught all the other nuns to sing show tunes.
Which then put me deeper into finding this story, from which I found this article saying that the story of the Black Nun is familiar to the Quiet as a Nun novel, released in 1977, as well as its adaptation in 78. That's still over a decade from when we first heard of it, so I thought I'd watch it anyway to see if it had any similarities to any of the stories told.
2 hours later.
Well, that was just a waste of time. Even though there are multiple different stories relating to the Black Nun, the only thing that relates to the Fraser's story is that people call a mysterious nun the Black Nun. Why would you lie to me, nation.cymru? You just looked up a picture of the Black Nun and found this image which has nothing to do with Llangrannog, which you cite in the same article. So the basic story of Quiet as a Nun is of this journalist Jemima who gets called back to a convent where she stayed growing up, after hearing about a friend who passed away from starvation. From here we get a confusing story about the will of said friend who owned the ground that the convent is on, and a real weird guy who wants to make land affordable to everyone or something, but that includes the land that the convent is on, and he dresses up like a nun with no face to scare children into telling him where the will is. It's confusing, pointless, and has nothing to do with the story I was looking for. So where does that leave us now? We will still have 2 years missing from when the Black Nun appeared, but there is still something from those earlier years that could help us.
I feel old. I was there in about 1979-80. No nun stories, but that elf fella creeped me out.
So in reality, what probably happened is when kids or even the volunteering teenagers would see close teachers or caretakers wandering the halls to make sure no one was out, someone made the story of seeing a black nun outside, or it may even come from one of the many other places in Wales that have a very similar story of this nun. Either way, it seems that the story has ended now, as people don't really remember it, or it has lost all fear it once had in children.